Lily took on more responsibilities in the council. Her voice now respected not just because she was the king's daughter, but because she spoke with wisdom shaped by two worlds. She proposed new trade routes with Earth, not for minerals or weapons, but for seeds, books, and music recordings. She argued that strength came not only from shields and ships, but from understanding. Many nobles still grumbled, but fewer dared to oppose her openly. They had seen how the king's eyes lit up when he watched Nova play, how his posture had relaxed, how he sometimes hummed human lullabies under his breath. King Vorlax himself had changed. He no longer sat alone in the obsidian throne room. He walked the gardens daily, often with Morgan beside him. They talked about everything: childhood, loss, the meaning of home. He told her about the day Lyra was born, how the stars had aligned in a rare pattern, how the oracles had predicted she would bring great change. He never imagined that change would come wrapped in denim and kindness, carried on the shoulders of a human mechanic from a backwater world. One afternoon, a distress signal crackled through the Imperial comms. A human colony ship, the Aurora, had gone off course near the Krell border. Its engines were failing, and it carried over 200 souls, mostly families and scientists. The Zenthari fleet was on high alert. The Krell swarm had been restless again, their black ship skimming the edges of known space. Sending help would be risky. Some council members argued that humans were not worth the danger. Let them fend for themselves, they said. They are not our people. Lily stood before the council, her voice calm but firm. They are Morgan's people. They are Nova's people. And if we claim to value connection over conquest, then we must act like it. King Vorlax looked at Morgan, who stood silently at the edge of the chamber, her hands clasped tight. He saw not fear in her eyes, but trust. She believed in them. That was enough. He gave the order. A Zenthari rescue cruiser, the Star Warden, would launch at once. Morgan insisted on going. I know human systems, she said. I can help them fix their engines faster. Lily wanted to go too, but the king placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Stay. Protect Nova, and trust that we have become better than we were. The Star Warden reached the Aurora just as Krell scouts appeared on the horizon. The Zenthari ship deployed its shields and held position, a silent wall of defiance. Inside the damaged human vessel, Morgan worked alongside the crew, her hands moving fast over tangled wires and burnt circuits. She spoke calmly, clearly, translating Zenthari tech terms into plain English. Within hours, the Aurora's engines sputtered back to life. As the ship limped toward safe space, the human captain turned to Morgan, tears in his eyes. Thank you, he said. You saved us. Back on Zalthor, news of the rescue spread fast. For the first time, humans were spoken of not as primitives but as allies. The act of mercy became a turning point. Trade agreements deepened. Human doctors came to study Zenthari healing crystals. Zenthari engineers helped rebuild Earth's orbital stations. And through it all, Morgan remained the quiet bridge between worlds. But peace is never absolute. Whispers returned from the outer rim. The Krell were gathering, not just raiding but building. Their numbers grew, their tactics smarter. Old fears stirred in the Empire. Some called for preemptive strikes, others urged isolation. Lily and Morgan knew war would undo everything they had built. Then Nova fell ill. It started with a fever, then a strange rash that glowed faintly blue. The royal healers were baffled. Her human and Zenthari biology clashed in ways no one had seen before. For 3 days she lay still, her breathing shallow. Lily never left her side. Morgan paced the halls, her mind racing. She remembered an old earth remedy: willow bark tea for fever, honey for strength. She mixed it carefully, praying it wouldn't harm her daughter. She also asked the healers to try something new. Not just scan and inject, but hold Nova's hand. Speak to her. Remind her she was loved. On the 4th morning, Nova opened her eyes. She smiled weakly and whispered, "Mama." The healers called it a miracle. Morgan knew it was more than that. It was care. It was presence. It was the quiet power of tending to someone with your whole heart. King Vorlax watched his granddaughter recover, and something hardened in his resolve. He called a full assembly of the Empire's leaders. We have spent centuries fearing weakness, he said. But true strength is not in never falling. It is in helping others rise. The Krell thrive on fear. We will defeat them not with more fire, but with more light. He announced a new initiative, the Alliance of Shared Skies. It would unite Zenthari, humans, and other peaceful species in a network of mutual aid, open communication, and cultural exchange. No more hiding. No more suspicion. Only cooperation. Lily stood beside him, proud. Morgan stood behind them, holding Nova's small hand. The Krell attacked soon after, striking a border station. But this time the response was different. Human ships arrived alongside Xanthari cruisers not to fight, but to evacuate civilians. Scientists from 3 species worked together to jam Krell signals using harmonic frequencies based on human music and Xanthari resonance chants. The Krell, used to enemies who met violence with violence, faltered. They had no answer for unity. In the aftermath, even the most hardened warriors began to understand. The Empire was changing, not losing its strength but deepening it. Children played games that mixed Xanthari strategy and human imagination. Poets wrote verses in blended languages. Chefs experimented with blue nectar and cinnamon. Lily and Morgan often sat on their balcony at dusk, watching Nova chase fireflies that had been bioengineered to glow like Earth ones. They spoke little, but their silence was full. They had built something rare, a love that crossed stars, a family that defied biology, a home that welcomed all. King Vorlax joined them one evening, his scales shimmering gold in the twilight. He looked at Nova, then at Morgan, then at his daughter. "You were never lost," he said to Lily. "You were just waiting for the right person to help you find your way back. And in doing so, you found a way for all of us." Morgan reached for Lily's hand. The stars above burned steady and bright. Somewhere out there, other worlds watched. Other hearts waited. But here on Zalthor, in this moment, there was only peace, and it was enough. Years passed like slow tides on Zalthor, each one deepening the roots of the life Lily and Morgan had planted. Nova was no longer a toddler, but a bright-eyed girl of 8, fluent in 3 languages and curious about everything. She could recite Xanthari star maps from memory and build working model rockets from scrap parts Morgan brought home from the engineering bay. She asked questions no one had thought to ask before. Why do we fear what is different? Why do stars die? Can kindness be stronger than a plasma cannon? Her teachers did not always have answers, but they listened. That was the new way. Morgan had long since stopped feeling like an outsider. The palace staff called her by name, not title. Children ran to her in the halls for advice or a quick hug. Even the old warlords, once skeptical, now nodded in respect when she passed. She still wore simple clothes, soft shirts, sturdy boots, and still fixed things with her hands, though now she worked on starship consoles as often as on old Earth radios. She taught Xanthari engineers how to troubleshoot with intuition, not just data. Sometimes, she said, the machine tells you what is wrong if you listen closely enough. Lily served as co-regent now, sharing duties with her father. King Vorlax had grown older, his scales fading to a gentle silver, but his mind remained sharp. He leaned on Lily's judgment more each day, trusting her blend of Xanthari discipline and human compassion. Together they reshaped the Empire's laws. Less punishment, more restoration. Less secrecy, more transparency. Prisons became learning centers. War academies added courses in empathy and conflict resolution. It was slow work, but it held. Then came the message from Earth. It was encoded in an old human frequency, one Morgan had not heard in decades. Her hands shook as she played it in their private chamber. The voice was Claire's, older now, softer but unmistakable. "Lily, Morgan, I hope this finds you. The flower shop is still here. The roses still bloom in June. I just wanted you to know, I am proud of you. And if you ever come back, there will be tea waiting." Morgan cried quietly. Lily held her. They had not returned to Earth since the early days, too busy building bridges between worlds. But Claire had never stopped being home. They decided to go, not as royalty or ambassadors, but as a family. King Vorlax approved the journey without hesitation. "Take the Sky Blossom," he said. "The smallest royal vessel shaped like a petal. Let it carry your peace." Earth had changed. Cities were greener, skies clearer, thanks in part to Xanthari clean energy tech shared through the Alliance. But Oregon was much the same, rainy, quiet, wrapped in mist and pine. Claire's flower shop stood on the corner, its sign faded but proud. When she saw them step out of the hovering craft, she dropped her watering can and ran. They spent a week in the small house behind the shop. Nova played in the garden, chasing butterflies and asking Claire about every flower by name. Morgan helped repaint the shop's shutters. Lily sat on the porch swing with Claire, talking about the years, the fears, the joys. Claire never asked for grand stories of alien courts. She asked if Lily still liked chamomile tea, if Morgan still snored softly in her sleep, if Nova liked strawberries. Simple things, human things. Nova remembered her lessons. She did not speak. She bowed slightly, then held out the music box. She wound it gently. The tune floated through the air, simple and human. The beings tilted their heads. One stepped forward and touched its chest, then pointed to Nova. It made a soft hum that matched the melody. They were not warriors. They were singers. Their entire civilization communicated through harmonic resonance. Their buildings were instruments. Their history was sung, not written. They had sent the signal because their star was dimming, their world cooling. They were searching for others who might understand music as language, who might help them preserve their songs before their light faded. Nova sat with them for days, learning their tones, sharing Earth songs, teaching them how to hold the music box. Morgan worked with their builders, showing them how to store sound in crystals using Zenthari tech, how to power their instruments with solar cells from human design. It was not rescue. It was exchange. When they returned to Zalthor, they brought not just data but a new member of the Alliance, the Aelari, as they called themselves. Their first gift to the Empire was a song woven from Zenthari chants, human lullabies and their own ancient harmonies. It played in the central plaza for a full cycle, and no one spoke. They only listened. Back home, life returned to its rhythm, but deeper now. Nova began studying harmonic linguistics. Morgan started a new project, building a universal translator that used emotion, not just words. Lily worked with the Aelari elders to create a shared archive of songs from all Alliance worlds. King Vorlax grew weaker. He spent more time in bed, but his mind stayed clear. One evening, he asked for Lily, Morgan, and Nova to come to his chamber. The room was filled with the scent of memory blooms, their petals glowing softly in the dim light. "I have lived long," he said, my voice thin but steady. "I ruled with fear, then with duty, then with love. You showed me that love is the strongest law. Do not let the Empire forget that. Even when I'm gone," Lily held his hand. "We will not." Morgan knelt beside him. "You gave us a home when we had none." Nova placed the music box on his chest, "So you can hear us even in silence." He smiled, his scales fading to a pale silver. Then he closed his eyes, not in sleep but in peace. His passing was mourned across the Alliance. Human choirs sang on Earth. Zenthari warriors laid down their blades for a full cycle. The Aelari filled the skies with a farewell song that made the stars seem to weep. But there was no despair, only gratitude. Lily became queen not by title alone but by the trust of her people. She ruled not from a throne but from the Garden of Echoes, where she met with anyone who sought her. Morgan stood beside her, not as a consort but as an equal, builder, teacher, heart of the bridge. Nova grew into her role not as a princess but as a guide, showing others that difference was not danger but discovery. Years later, a new signal came, not from the edge of space, but from a human colony near Alpha Centauri. A child had been born with silver eyes and glowing skin. Her parents, both human, were frightened. They did not know what she was. Queen Lily sent a message at once. "Do not fear. She is not lost. She is found. And we will welcome her." Morgan prepared the sky blossom again. Nova, now a young woman, joined her. They carried gifts, a memory bloom seedling, a music box, and a letter from Claire, who still tended her roses in Oregon, now over 100 years old but sharp as ever. As their ship lifted into the clouds, Lily watched from the balcony, the wind in her hair. She thought of her father, of Claire, of all the hands that had held hers along the way. The universe was vast, but it was not empty. It was full of voices waiting to be heard, hearts waiting to connect, and somewhere out there, another story was just beginning. The sky blossom glided through the quiet dark between stars, its hull humming with a gentle energy that felt more like a lullaby than a machine. Inside, Nova sat cross-legged on the floor of the cockpit, her fingers tracing the grooves of an old Earth compass Morgan had given her for her 16th birthday. It did not point north here, it spun slowly, uselessly, but she kept it anyway. It reminded her that sometimes you do not need to know the direction, only that you are moving forward. Morgan piloted with calm focus, her hands resting lightly on the controls. She had flown this route before, but never with so much weight in her chest. The message from the Alpha Centauri colony had been brief, trembling with fear. "Our daughter glows in the dark. Her eyes change color when she dreams. We do not know what to do." Nova had read it once and said, "We go now." They carried more than gifts this time. They carried understanding. In a small case lined with thermal cloth was a vial of Zenthari genetic stabilizer, a serum developed after Nova's own childhood illness, designed to help hybrid children balance their dual biology. There were also books, soft blankets woven with memory bloom threads, and a data chip filled with lullabies from 10 different worlds. But most importantly, they carried presents. They would not just drop off supplies and leave. They would stay. They would listen. The colony was small, a cluster of domes nestled in a red valley surrounded by hardy earth plants and alien moss that shimmered at dusk. As the sky blossom landed, a man and woman stood waiting, arms wrapped tightly around each other. Between them stood a little girl no older than 5, her skin faintly luminous, her eyes wide with curiosity rather than fear. Nova stepped out first, kneeling so she was at the child's level. "Hi," she said softly. "My name is Nova. I glow too." The girl blinked. "Really? Really? Watch." Nova closed her eyes for a moment, then let her own silver light rise gently from her skin, soft as moonlight. The little girl gasped, then giggled. She reached out and touched Nova's hand. "It is warm." Morgan and the parents exchanged quiet words. "We are not here to take her," Morgan said. "We are here to help you understand her, and to let her know she is not alone." They stayed for weeks. Nova played with the girl. Her name was Alara, and taught her simple breathing exercises to calm her glow when it flared with strong emotions. Morgan worked with the colony's medics, showing them how to monitor Alara's unique biology without treating it like a disease. Slowly, the parents' fear turned to wonder. They began to see not a problem, but a miracle. One evening, as the twin sun set, Alara asked Nova a question. "Am I Xanthari or human?" "You are both," Nova said. "And you are yourself. That is enough." Back on Zalthor, Queen Lily managed the Empire with steady hands. The alliance had grown to include 12 species now, each adding their voice to the shared song of peace. Trade flowed not in weapons, but in seeds, stories, and songs. Schools taught children to speak in multiple tongues to solve problems with dialogue, not force. The old ways of conquest were not erased, but honored as lessons. Not to repeat, but to learn from. Still, challenges remained. A mining dispute flared on a border moon between human settlers and a newly joined insectoid species called the Vrel. Both sides claimed the same crystal caves, sacred to the Vrel, rich in energy ore for the humans. Tempers rose. Old instincts whispered, "Take what is yours." Lily refused to send enforcers. Instead, she sent artists. A team of human sculptors and Vrel sound weavers traveled to the moon. Together, they transformed the caves into a living gallery. Crystals shaped into human faces, walls humming with Vrel ancestral chants, light refracting into shared symbols of unity. The miners and the Vrel elders stood together in the heart of it, silent. Then one human reached out and placed a hand on a Vrel's chitinous shoulder. The tension broke like thin ice. Lily watched the report from her garden, a cup of chamomile tea in her hand. Claire still sent it every month, even at 102. She smiled. Sometimes beauty disarms faster than any weapon. Meanwhile, Nova and Morgan prepared to return home. Alara's parents had decided to stay on the colony. They loved their life there. But they agreed to send Alara to Zalthor for part of each year, to learn from Nova, to meet others like her. A new school was being built, just for hybrid children, where biology was not a barrier but a bridge. On their last night, Alara gave Nova a drawing. It showed 2 figures holding hands under a sky full of stars, one glowing, one not. Above them, in careful letters, she had written, "Family." Nova tucked it into her pocket next to the old compass. The journey back was quiet. Morgan watched Nova stare out the viewport, her face thoughtful. "You okay?" she asked. Nova nodded. "I just keep thinking, what if we had not gone? What if we had been too busy, too afraid?" Alara might have grown up thinking she was broken. "But we went," Morgan said, "and we will keep going. As long as there is one child who feels lost, we will find them." When they landed, Lily was waiting on the platform, her silver hair catching the light. She hugged them both, then knelt to greet Alara, who clung shyly to Nova's hand. "Welcome home," Lily said. "You belong here." Life settled into a new pattern. Alara attended lessons with Nova, learning Xanthari history and earth botany. Morgan expanded the bridge bay to include a wing for hybrid health and development. Lily held weekly open courts where any citizen, human, Xanthari, Ailari, Vrel, could speak their concerns. The Empire was no longer just Xanthari. It was something new, something shared. Then came word from Earth. Claire was fading. Her body was tired, her heart slow. She had refused all advanced treatments. "I've lived long enough," she had told the medics. "I want to go the old way." On their last evening, Claire handed Morgan a small wooden box. Inside was a dried bluebell pressed between sheets of paper. "I kept it from the day I found you," she said to Lily. "It was in your hand when you were just a child, standing in the rain outside my door. I always wondered where it came from." Lily smiled. "It is a Zenthari memory bloom. It only grows where love has taken root." Claire nodded, tears in her eyes. Then it found the right place. Back on Xalthor, they returned to news of unrest. Not from the Krell this time, but from within. A faction of traditionalists, calling themselves the Pure Scale, had begun spreading rumors. They claimed the Empire was weakening, that human influence had made them soft, that Nova's very existence was an insult to Zenthari purity. They gathered in hidden forums, their voices growing louder. At first, Lily wanted to ignore them. But when graffiti appeared on the walls of the learning halls, crude symbols calling for separation, she knew silence would not do. She called a public gathering in the central plaza, the first of its kind. Thousands came, Zenthari and humans alike standing together under the twin suns. "I am Lyra of Xalthor," she began. "And I am also Lily of Earth. I was raised by a human woman who taught me that worth is not in blood but in action. My daughter is both human and Zenthari, and she is whole. She is not a mistake. She is a promise. If we fear what is new, we will never grow. If we reject what is different, we will never heal." Morgan stepped forward then, something she rarely did in formal settings. "I came here not to change your world," she said, "but because someone I loved needed me. And in staying, I found a home. You have given my daughter a future. Do not let fear take that away." The crowd was silent at first. Then one young Zenthari student raised her hand. "I have a human friend," she said. "We studied together. She taught me how to braid my tendrils. Is that wrong?" A murmur of agreement rose. Others spoke, about human music they loved, about earth food they missed, about friendships that crossed species. The Pure Scale's lies began to crumble under the weight of real lives. Still, the faction did not vanish. They went underground, plotting. Weeks later, an explosion rocked the eastern docking bay. No one was killed, but the message was clear. Sabotage. Fear. King Vorlax summoned his council. "We cannot arrest ideas," he said, "but we can drown them in light." He ordered the opening of the Unity Festival, a celebration of all member species of the Alliance. It would be held in the heart of the capital, with music, food, art, and stories from every world. Morgan and Lily threw themselves into planning. Nova helped design the children's zone, where kids could try on costumes from different cultures and learn simple phrases in new languages. Morgan worked with Earth chefs and Zenthari nutrient artisans to create fusion dishes. Spiced root cakes with honey glaze, fruit nectar smoothies with edible stardust. Lily coordinated performances, including a joint choir of human singers and Zenthari harmonic chanters. The day of the festival arrived. The sky was clear, the air sweet with the scent of blooming memory blooms. Crowds filled the plaza, laughing, eating, dancing. Then, as the suns began to set, a figure stepped onto the main stage. King Vorlax himself, leaning on a cane but standing tall. Beside him stood Nova, holding a small earth flute. "I was once a king who ruled with fear," he said. "I thought strength was in walls, in weapons, in silence. But my daughter taught me that true strength is in opening the door. Today we do not celebrate one people. We celebrate many. And in that many, we find one heart." Nova played a simple tune, "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star," her notes clear and bright. Then the Zenthari chanters joined in, weaving their deep hums around the melody. Human singers added harmony. The sound rose into the sky, not as a weapon, but as an offering. In that moment, something shifted. Even those who had doubted felt it. A sense of belonging that did not erase difference but honored it. The Pure Scale members who had come to disrupt found themselves swaying to the music, tears in their eyes. One by one they left, not in anger, but in quiet reflection. After the festival, reports came in from across the Empire. Communities were holding their own unity gatherings. Schools were starting exchange programs. Artists were collaborating on new forms of expression. The fear had not vanished, but it no longer ruled. That night, Lily, Morgan, and Nova sat on their balcony again. Nova was sleepy, her head resting on Morgan's shoulder. Lily looked out at the city, its lights shimmering like fallen stars. "We did it," she whispered. Morgan kissed the top of Nova's head. "No," she said. "We are still doing it. Every day." King Vorlax joined them, carrying 3 cups of warm nectar tea. He sat beside his daughter, his old eyes full of peace. The Empire will outlive me, he said. But what you have built, this love, this bridge, it will outlive empires. They sat in silence then, watching the stars turn. Somewhere far away, a new child was being born on a human colony world. Somewhere else, a Xanthari poet was writing a verse about Earth rain. And here, in the heart of it all, a family rested, knowing they had helped make the universe a little kinder, a little more whole. And that was enough. Time flowed like a quiet river through the heart of the Xanthari Empire, carrying with it seasons of peace, growth, and small everyday miracles. Nova was now 12, tall for her age, with Lily's grace and Morgan's sharp mind. She spent her days in the royal archives, not just studying history, but rewriting parts of it, adding human perspectives, Earth poems, and notes from Claire's old gardening journals. She believed the past should not be a wall but a window. Her teachers encouraged her, even when her ideas unsettled the old scholars. She was, after all, the first of her kind, a true child of two worlds, and her voice carried weight beyond her years. Morgan had opened a workshop near the lower gardens, a place where Xanthari youths and human exchange students could tinker together. She called it the Bridge Bay. There they built everything from solar drones to music boxes that played lullabies in blended tongues. Morgan taught them that fixing things was not just about tools, but about patience, about seeing what others overlooked. She often said the best inventions come from listening, not just to machines, but to people. Lily's role had deepened. She now led the Council of Shared Futures, a body created to guide the Alliance through ethical dilemmas, how to explore new worlds without colonizing them, how to share technology without creating dependence, how to honor traditions while making room for change. Her decisions were never rushed. She consulted elders, children, farmers, pilots, poets. She believed wisdom lived in many places, not just thrones. King Vorlax rarely attended council meetings anymore. His health had slowed him, but his presence remained strong in other ways. He spent his days in the Garden of Echoes tending to memory blooms with his own hands. He often invited visitors, human diplomats, young Xanthari cadets, even former members of the Pure Scale, to sit with him and talk. He asked them simple questions. What makes you afraid? What makes you hopeful? Who taught you to be kind? His questions disarmed. His silence gave space. Many left the garden changed. Then came the signal from the outer rim, a faint repeating pulse from a system long thought dead. It was not Krell. It was not any known species. The pattern was musical, almost like a question. The Imperial Science Guild was baffled. Some feared it was a trap. Others thought it was a natural anomaly. But Nova, listening to the recording in her room, recognized something familiar. It reminded her of the way Claire used to tap rhythms on teacups when she was thinking. She brought the idea to Lily and Morgan. What if it is not a weapon, she said, but a hello? What if someone out there is lonely like I once was? Lily looked at her daughter, seeing not just a child, but a bridge reaching further than any before. She took the idea to the council. After hours of debate, they agreed to send a single ship, not armed, not cloaked, but open. The Sky Blossom, now upgraded with both Xanthari and human tech, would go. Morgan would pilot. Nova would accompany her as cultural liaison. It was unprecedented, a child on a first contact mission. But the council trusted them. They had earned that trust. Preparations were quiet, filled with care. Morgan checked every system twice. Nova packed gifts, not weapons or data chips, but handmade items. A quilt stitched with symbols from both Earth and Zalthor. A music box that played Twinkle Twinkle. A jar of Claire's dried lavender. And a small pot with a memory bloom seedling. Lily helped her choose the words for their message. We come in peace. We have known loss. We seek friendship. King Vorlax stood on the launch platform, leaning on his cane. He placed a hand on Nova's shoulder. You carry more than your name, he said. You carry the hope of many. Do not be afraid to be gentle. The journey took 6 cycles. The signal grew stronger, clearer. It came from a small blue planet orbiting a quiet star. As the Sky Blossom entered orbit, scans showed no cities, no weapons, no ships. Only forests, oceans, and strange glowing flora. And in a clearing near a river, a structure, simple, organic, shaped like a spiral shell. They landed gently. Morgan and Nova stepped out in soft suits, helmets open. The air was sweet, the light golden. Before them stood beings unlike any they had seen. Tall, slender, with skin like polished stone and eyes that shimmered like liquid silver. They made no sound, but their hands moved in slow, flowing gestures. King Vorlax of the Xanthari Empire sat alone in the obsidian throne room. his 6 arms folded tightly across his chest, his obsidian scales dull with grief. For 10 cycles he had mourned his only daughter Lyra, taken during the Great Raid by the Krell Swarm. The Zinthari were warriors, proud and ancient, their empire spanning 3 galaxies, yet they could not protect their own princess. Every scout ship returned empty, every oracle fell silent. Hope had turned to ash in his throat. He no longer wore his ceremonial armor. He no longer attended council meetings. He simply sat, staring at the hologram of his daughter as a child, her silver eyes bright with curiosity, her small hands reaching for the stars. Meanwhile, on a forgotten mudball of a planet called Earth, Lyra lived quietly under a human named Lily. She had been found as a child by a kind woman named Claire, who ran a small flower shop in Oregon. Claire never asked too many questions about the strange girl with silver eyes and faintly glowing skin. She simply gave her a home, taught her to tie her shoes, to read books, to laugh at silly cartoons. Lily learned to hide her differences, to mimic human gestures, to speak without hissing the sea sounds like her people did. She grew tall and graceful, with dark hair that shimmered like starlight when the sun hit it just right. She worked part-time at the flower shop, arranging bouquets with care, her fingers moving with a rhythm that felt older than the planet itself. But Lily never forgot who she was. In dreams, she heard the deep hum of Zinthari war chants. She remembered the scent of ion storms and the taste of blue nectar from her childhood gardens. Still, Earth felt like home now, especially after she met Morgan. Morgan was a mechanic with grease-stained hands and a soft voice. She fixed old trucks and rescued stray cats. She never judged Lily for being quiet or for staring too long at the stars. They met at a county fair, sharing a bag of kettle corn under string lights. Morgan smiled like she meant it, and Lily felt something stir in her chest that no Zinthari ritual had ever named. They spent more time together, walks in the woods, late-night talks on the porch, fixing Morgan's old pickup truck together. Lily found peace in the simplicity of human life. There were no wars over star systems, no ancient blood feuds, just people trying to get by, to love, to survive. Morgan taught her how to change oil, how to whistle through her teeth, how to make pancakes without burning them. In return, Lily showed Morgan how to listen to the wind, how to find constellations even in light-polluted skies, how to sit in silence without it feeling heavy. One evening, as they sat on Morgan's porch watching fireflies, Lily finally told her the truth. "I'm not from here," she said. "I am Lyra of the Zinthari. My father is a king among stars." Morgan didn't laugh. She didn't run. She just took Lily's hand and said, "Then you must miss him terribly." Lily nodded, tears welling in her silver eyes. "I do, but I was afraid to go back, afraid they would not recognize me, afraid I had changed too much." Morgan squeezed her hand. "You are still you. That is all that matters." That night, Lily activated the hidden beacon in her wristband, a device she had kept dormant for years. Within hours, a sleek Zinthari cruiser descended through the clouds, silent and massive. Soldiers in polished armor stepped out, their eyes wide with disbelief. The lost princess stood before them, wearing jeans and a flannel shirt, holding the hand of a human woman. They knelt at once, their voices trembling as they spoke the old greeting of return. "Hail Lyra, light of Zalthor, returned from the void." They brought her back to the capital world of Zalthor, a planet of floating cities and rivers of liquid light. The air hummed with energy, the sky streaked with auroras even at noon. Lily felt both awe and fear. Everything was familiar yet distant, like a song she once knew but could no longer sing. Morgan walked beside her, wide-eyed but steady, her hand never leaving Lily's. King Vorlax wept when he saw her. His scales brightened to a deep violet, the color of joy in their culture. He embraced her with 4 arms, trembling. "My child, my light," he whispered. But his joy dimmed when he saw Morgan standing behind her. "A human," he said, his voice low and sharp. "You bring a fragile earthling into the heart of the Empire." Lily stood tall. "She is not fragile. She is my anchor. Without her, I might have drowned in my own sorrow." The court buzzed with outrage. Humans were considered primitive, barely spacefaring, known only for their chaotic music and strange obsession with bread. Many nobles demanded Morgan be sent back at once. Some even suggested she be studied, caged like a curiosity. Whispers spread through the halls. "The princess has been corrupted. She brings a soft creature into our halls of steel." But Lily would not allow it. She spoke before the High Council, her voice steady. "You mourned me as lost, but I was found. Not by your ships or your warriors, but by kindness. Morgan gave me a name when I had none. She taught me that strength is not just in claws or plasma cannons, but in patience, in listening. in planting seeds and waiting for them to grow. King Vorlax listened. He watched Morgan carefully. She did not cower. She did not beg. She simply stood beside Lily, calm and present. One evening, the king invited Morgan to walk with him in the Garden of Echoes, where memories bloomed as flowers. "Tell me," he said, "why did you stay with her when you learned what she was?" Morgan looked at the twin moons rising over the spires. "Because love doesn't care about species. It cares about truth. And Lily was always honest with me." The king was silent for a long time. Then he said, "My people have forgotten how to be gentle. We build empires, but we forget to build homes." You reminded her of that. Perhaps you can remind us too. The next day, the king made an announcement that shook the empire. Morgan would not be sent away. She would be granted guest status with full rights and protection. More than that, she would serve as an ambassador of Earth values, teaching Xanthari children about empathy, art, and the quiet courage of everyday life. At first, many resisted, but Morgan did not try to change them. She simply lived. She helped in the healing wards, using human remedies like honey and warm compresses alongside their advanced tech. She played music from her small device, songs about heartbreak and hope that made even the sternest warriors pause. She taught Lily how to bake apple pie, and together they shared it with palace staff, laughing as the Xanthari tried to pronounce cinnamon. Slowly, hearts softened. The court began to see what Lily had seen all along, that humanity's greatest weapon was not its ships or its science, but its capacity to care for those who are different. King Vorlax often watched Morgan from afar, noting how she treated even the lowest servant with respect, how she smiled at children, how she never raised her voice even when frustrated. Lily resumed her royal duties, but never without Morgan at her side. They walked the sky bridges together, debated philosophy with scholars, and stargazed from the highest balcony. King Vorlax often joined them, asking Morgan questions about Earth, about loss, about how humans found light in dark times. One night, as the three of them sat wrapped in thermal cloaks, watching a meteor shower, the king turned to Morgan and said, "You have given my daughter back to me, but you have also given me something I did not know I needed: a new way to see the universe." Morgan smiled, "And you've shown me that even kings can learn." In time, the Xanthari Empire opened its arms to Earth, not as conquerors, but as partners. Trade began, not of weapons, but of stories, seeds, music, and medicine. Human artists visited Zalthor, painting murals on the crystal walls. Xanthari scientists came to Earth not to study humans as specimens, but to learn from their resilience. Lily and Morgan built a life between two worlds. They adopted a child, a human Xanthari hybrid with silver eyes and curly brown hair, who laughed in both languages. They named her Nova. King Vorlax, once broken by loss, now presided over an empire that valued not just power, but connection. He often said in his speeches that the greatest discovery his people ever made was not a new star system or a faster drive, but the truth that love knows no species, no borders, no galaxies. And so, in the heart of a once proud and lonely empire, a human woman and an alien princess wove a new story, one of quiet courage, shared meals, and the kind of love that rebuilds worlds not with fire, but with kindness. Life on Zalthor settled into a new rhythm, one woven with human warmth and Xanthari grandeur. Lily and Morgan lived in a sunlit suite in the royal spire, its walls made of living crystal that shifted color with the mood of the sky. Nova, their daughter, grew quickly, her laughter echoing through halls once filled only with solemn chants. She had Lily's silver eyes and Morgan's stubborn chin, and she spoke in a mix of Xanthari clicks and English nursery rhymes. The palace staff adored her. Even the sternest guards softened when she toddled up to them with a flower she had picked from the Garden of Echoes. Morgan continued her work as an informal ambassador, though she never called herself that. She spent mornings in the learning halls, sitting cross-legged on the floor with young Xanthari children, teaching them how to draw with charcoal, how to tell stories with their hands, how to say "I'm sorry" when they hurt someone. The elders watched at first with suspicion, but soon they saw changes. The children argued less. They shared more. They began to ask questions not just about war strategy or energy cores, but about feelings, about dreams, about what it meant to be kind.